said this many times before. When you got a friend who knows way more than you do, accept the help. Mark came over here and these doors were all off in a matter of like 10 minutes at the most. All stored, safe, so that we can pull parts off of them. So a big thanks to Mark, but he doesn't like the camera because his face might break it. We're at the point now of pulling the wiring harness out, and it seems that the wiring harness basically just went up, over, down, and then teed and came all the way back through, comes down behind the driver's seat to, there's apparently a plug right here for the entire harness, which actually makes sense because there were multiple different body styles that went on these. So I would assume that that's why the harness has a multi-plug, which is right here. I also found this one that was deadheaded with nothing in it, but I would bet that's probably for passenger ones that have heaters and air conditioners in the rear. The other note I wanted to make here, in case somebody's dealing with one of these vans, that right there is literally the only ground in the entire wiring harness for the rear of this thing, is that one little bitty 8mm right there. So we've got everything gutted out as far as that's concerned. I'm just going to leave the light there because I haven't figured out which one I'm going to wire in once the cab is built. There's this one here. And then if we come around, there is that one right there. So maybe I'll wire one on a toggle switch, or maybe I'll wire both of them in. That's a long ways down and not overly worried about it at this point. Let's give a giant shout out to HITBOX for supplying us with a plasma cutter with a built-in air compressor, a True View helmet, and this amazing multi-purpose welder that we will be diving into because it is capable of MIG welding with aluminum. So this little welder is going to fully expand tons of things we're capable of doing here. It is capable of stick, TIG, MIG, and a MIG roller gun. Has tons of different options that are available. This unit here is what we're going to be working with today. It is HITBOX's plasma cutter with a built-in air compressor. I have said it for years and years and years that the first company that ever decided to get into the ring with Hobart with a built-in air compressor to challenge the Air Force series was going to be the company I was going to work with. This thing hit the market at 1/3 the cost of an Air Force. It is around the $500 mark, and it is amazing. It cuts up to 1/2 inch thick solid steel without any issue whatsoever, and it uses a standard 31 gun, which means that the refills on these, you can buy like a 200-piece set of refills for like 30 bucks. The gun is replaceable. The grounding is replaceable, unlike the Hobart Air Force. This ground is teeny tiny, but it's an unscrewable connection on both ends, easily can be upgraded to be however long you want it to be. I was able to find a version of this that plugged in that was 15 foot long for like 65 bucks on Amazon. I'll post up a link for everything here, but big giant shout out to HITBOX for sponsoring the Van-Haulen build. There you go. There, you made your first cutoff.
No, technically my second.
Oh, your second?
I did a little line in that one.
So you've never used a plasma cutter before, right?
No.
Is this cool?
Kinda.
Yeah, that's a pretty cut.
Love you.
There, you're learning. What do you think? A neat new tool to have?
Yeah.
Yeah, you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Need better goggles.
We'll find some Jesse size goggles. See, Jesse's got a tiny head and I have a fat head. So we need to find her some Jesse size goggles. If anybody has a lead on cutting torch goggles that are smaller for Jesse to wear, throw us a comment. We'd appreciate it, because John could use some too.
Yes.
Sprayer is always a good idea. These are like 20 bucks. Always worth it to have one. In the winter time, I put windshield washer fluid in it that's treated for the winter. That way it's always there, always ready. I almost got it cut off before it decided to go and catch my glove on fire almost. We'll finish getting that off of there and then get the top undone. There's no real way to get the camera up in to show the nuts and the bolts that I'm cutting off right now with this plasma cutter. So there's one next to a regular standard hickory hammer for reference. It cut right through in one pass without flinching. Alright, we got Jesse filming here. They say if you're going to do something stupid, make sure there's a camera on you. So at this point, unless I missed something, everything is cut and this whole section should come off. What I'm hoping is I can get it up onto the back bumper and then slowly bring it down this set of ramps. So here we go. The generator thing gave up. Okay. Okay, there's one side on. There's the other side. And providing I don't slice my throat open on the top of this thing. Alright, let's just put that down. Perfect! Nothing went wrong at all. That worked out great. Slight change of plans. As you can see, I've moved where I was planning to cut out this way a little bit. So I'm going to cut right straight across, right over the top of this line right here. And then I'm going to notch that in order to come back to where I cut out for that lower section. And then I'm going to cut that over and drop down with it. With the idea being leaving as much roof line as possible and leaving this edge that holds all of the roof rigidity in place. That way then once I get the other piece up and I start overlaying it, it'll be really easy to mark exactly where I need to cut it and go from there. I'd rather have too much and have to recut it than not have enough and have to try and figure out how to graft some roofing onto this thing. Whoa, Nelly, did I get close on that one. That's that wiring harness I worked so hard to save, and that's where that reciprocating saw blade just came through. Woo! I got really close to totally messing up my life right there. Okay, well, we've had that moment. We're gonna grab the plasma cutter and cut from there around in through, I believe, and figure it out from there. That figures. Battery died. Now we hit the plasma cutter point. It's just vibrating with the reciprocating saw. But we made good progress. We'll plasma the rest of it. I got over ambitious. I thought I was going to be able to hit the edge of what I know is a reinforcement beam going down through on this. I'm not going to be able to. I've got a brand new cutoff disc on here. I've been using these DeWalt ones as of late, but I'm starting to run out, debating whether I should get more of these or something else. If you guys have a suggestion, go for it. I'd appreciate it. So I've had to shift my line entirely over to this point so that I miss the end of this and can cut off everything, and we'll see how it goes from here. As we stand right now, that is cut. Right next to the beam on this side has been cut. This seems to all be loose, but we're not totally sure right now. That is cut all the way up and around. So right now, in theory, the fill neck and the 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts should be the only thing holding this on. So we're gonna figure out how to cut the fill neck brace thing, or whether we can just dump that out. After getting underneath and making sure that there wasn't any gas leaking out of the fill neck or anything, I took the plasma cutter to this and made myself a nice little access hatch here. All I'm going to do at this point is slice this bracket and slice that bracket so that this just floats and can fall down through. Shouldn't be too big of an issue. Inevitably, this whole fill assembly is going to migrate over and end up somewhere over in this area. So I'm not overly worried about saving the fill neck. It's all got to go that way in order to be up against what will eventually be the cab. There is one little strip of metal that they bound that thing to. I've been trying to get this to lift off the frame for like half an hour now. That is why it won't move. That I can't see. There's no reason we shouldn't be able to lift it at this point. Yeah, that's 5 tons worth of it's gonna move. Question is, why is it not moving the way it should? Yeah, no. Every project has that "are you bleeping me" moment. There's mine. That little sliver right there is what's been giving me problems this entire last like hour or so. As you can see, we've managed to get it quirked to one side quite a bit. And we've got the bolts cut off there. I'm working at getting this bolt cut off. Unfortunately, these are grade 8 bolts, which means my blade is now dying from cutting these grade 8s. Yes, it is a Milwaukee blade. It is not a cheap blade by any means. And most will point out that I have a plasma cutter. Why am I not just torching those off? Well, in some way of lifting this, I can now smell just a light hint of gas fumes. So I'd rather not take a chance, and we're being careful and going through and doing it with the reciprocating saw to try not to go and blow ourselves up. Well, sometimes you got to admit that you're not as strong as 3,000 pounds worth of hidden winch in underneath everything. So at this point, we're gonna give it a little ooga. And then we're gonna bounce it, and it's gonna come forward. And then we're gonna bounce it, and it's gonna come forward. And hopefully we can get it to this edge. That is exactly the reason why it is that I use a remote winch line. Because if I hadn't have had that, I would have been standing right there, and that cable just shot out over there. Alright, let's reset. Try that again. Alright, go ahead and let it down. There, that's good. Alright, so I ended up breaking the hook, and the reason I broke the hook was because I didn't realize that this had gouged into the tire. So what I've got to do is get it high enough that we can get it to come over the tire, and then we should be able to up and over and then flip the whole thing off of here. Or at least that's the plan. And Jessie really likes the plan, doesn't she? No. Here we go. It is drastically a case of slow and steady wins the race. I have not been filming while we've been doing this because that is the YouTuber's curse, that the moment you turn on the camera is when everything goes wrong. And we just don't need anything to go wrong. We've almost got it up and over and sitting on the tires. And once it's on that point, we should be able to get it pulled up and over. Okay, ready?
Yep. It's down. Out for the count.
Well guys, we got it off. Jessie's anxiety has been skyrocketed all day because apparently I'm a crazy redneck.
And you don't listen to your own dang rule.
Yeah, I don't listen to my own rule of stay out of the triangle of death when it comes to the winch line. I'm a really bad person when it comes to that. But we got to tear it off just in time for John showing up. So he's over here. What do you think, John? Was that cool?
Yes.
Alright. Did we have good timing?
Yes.
Alright. Do you think it's going to be a cool pickup truck van-y thing?
Yes.
Hi. What do you say?
Like and subscribe.
That works too. I was going for bye-bye.
Bye.
So I went to Dollar General and I found a paint pen. The idea is we're going to cut it off here. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say I should just cut it right here at the door. The problem is behind here is a structural pillar. So I needed to come back far enough that I leave the structure of the pillar intact and that I can graft over the top of it. The real reality is most of the rear end is going to kind of slide up and over this front half in order to graft it across. So this is where we're going to cut here in order to come up and overlap. The other side is absolutely totally blown out. This, on the other hand, well, up until behind me, is structurally sound. So much for that being intact. I was hoping that piece was going to be solid, but I guess mean got to that one. But then again, I was debating making kickers down here anyway. But yeah, that would have been fun if I had accidentally ended up hitting that with the reciprocating saw blade. Alright, well, we're going to go back to continuing to cut this up through because yet again, I'm hoping to save these panels. Although, this is starting to make me wonder why I'm bothering to save anything off of here. But, anyways. So we're going to take the plasma cutter and we're probably going to strike right here in this line. And we're going to drop all of this panel off so that we can graft it on the other side where the missing door makes a ginormous hole in the setup. Now, I know that a lot of you are going to say that I should cut this off right about in here. So why is my line all the way over here? The reason being is because the entire roof of this has ribs across it, except for the very last 6 inches on either end. Here we go. I'm up on the back side of Van-Haulen, and one of the things that I've come to the conclusion of is that I need to cut with about this much so that that can overlap that up there. It looks as if this is pretty square, but I've got to go at least out to here, which means I can use this, which is a factory seam that's on both sides, in order to figure out exactly where to cut it. So my choice is either I make it so that the ribs will overlay in order to be able to get everything to come together, or I've got to entirely re-roof the entire setup. I'd rather overlay it just barely than have to re-roof the entire stupid van. Truck, thing, flatbed. I don't know. What are we actually calling this creation at this point?
You've been calling it Van-Haulen.
Well, yeah, we call it Van-Haulen, but what's its actual term? I don't know. Somebody in the comments tell me if Ford has a real term for this thing. The same is going to go as far as the floor is concerned. What you probably can't see right now is I have a line that is drawn all the way back here, yet again with the silver paint.
Marker.
No, it's a paint marker.
See? You said paint, I said marker.
Alright. So, yet again, the line is drawn all the way back here because we had to go far enough into the floor ribbing so that in theory it should overlay the ribbing that's in the front of the cab.